Sorry, I'm having issues with my camera. So once I start talking during the presentation, I'm going to turn the camera off. But I am Anna McDonald, and I am from the Goodwill Workforce Connection Center in Lombard. And here is my contact information. Just briefly, the Workforce Center is located in Lombard at 351 East Roosevelt Road. We are in the Goodwill store. We are open 9 to 5 Monday through Thursday, and during the summer, 9 to 2 on Friday. We help with resume writing. We help with the job search. We do mock interviews. We have computer banks if you need access to a computer for your job search or to check your emails for the job search. And we could pretty much sit down with you and help you through your job search with any support that you feel like you need. Also, another thing that we offer is that we have hiring events, and we do have in-person events where employers actually come to hire to interview. So when you get registered with us, we will send you an email with the calendar of events for the month. And we will also text you throughout the month to provide any job leads. So that's a little bit about our Workforce Center. But today we are going to be talking about rejoining. I'm sorry, I'm going to turn my camera off. We are going to be talking about rejoining the workforce. So what we're going to talk about is the first steps, clarifying your goals, your resume networking, and the interview discussion. So, the job search for somebody rejoining the workforce is really the same as anybody looking for a job. And we talk a lot about reflection. We talk about, remembering and thinking about what you did in your previous jobs. What were your accomplishments? But for somebody rejoining the workforce, there is a level of, frustration, a level of fear, anxiety. I think it's more about, do I still have relevant skills? Do I still have something to offer? Am I up to date on technology? And so it can be a little bit scary. So you really have to be self-confident in an interview, right? And again, this is relatable to anybody looking for a job. You have to be confident in yourself and in your abilities. And so if you follow these reflection steps, this is going to boost your confidence in many ways. It's going to really let you see what great skills you have and recall all of those accomplishments and make you, better to talk about all of this in the interview. And especially for somebody that doesn't talk very well off the top of their head, isn't maybe a good marketer, if you don't take the time to think about what you have done in the past, it's going to be harder to sell yourself in the interview. So if you've taken the time to do all of this, you actually will be boosting your confidence because you've thought about it and you're not worried about what you're going to say, and everything just kind of flows in the interview. And believe me, the person on the other side of the table, the hiring manager, the recruiter, they could tell if somebody is, lacking confidence because they just don't believe in their abilities, or they could tell that the person really hasn't practiced or thought about the job or thought about their own skills. And so, part of this reflection that we're talking about is the first step. So what you need to be doing is spending an hour a day really thinking about and recalling everything that you have done in your past job, and that's acknowledging what were you really good at, what were those things that were no effort that just kind of came naturally to you. And I encourage people to actually talk to their previous colleagues or supervisors to kind of ask them, what do you think I was really good at? And you're going to be pleasantly surprised at what you are good at that you did not realize it. Or maybe thinking about your strengths, think about times that maybe a colleague patted you on the back or made a compliment. Look at your job performance reviews if you still have those. What were those things that your manager was praising you in that performance review? But you also have to be honest and think about, what do I really need to improve on? What has always been a struggle in all of your positions? Is it time management? Is it de-escalating situations? Are you the person that you're very passive aggressive, and when there is conflict or problems that have to be solved, you flee? What is it that you really need to improve upon and come up with a plan of action, and especially if it's a technical weakness, something that you're not up to date on, maybe in the Word or a particular database that's used for the industry of choice. There's all kinds of free services. I'm going to provide some of that shortly that you could do, but really acknowledge, what am I good at and what do I need to improve upon? You really need to think about your behaviors, and I kind of briefly mentioned that, but behaviors and values almost go hand in hand to some capacity. So in a behavioral interview question, which we talked about the calendar with Addison, we're going to be doing that, I think October maybe or September. But anyways, what are they're going to be probing and kind of figuring out your actions, because what you've done in the past is what you're going to do in the future. Those behaviors are very consistent, and they want to hire somebody that whose values and actions are aligned with how they do things. Think about relationships. It's so hard to change somebody, and that's what employers are worried about. They are not there to change you and make you believe or behave the way that they believe or behave. You have to come to them with those behaviors. Like, for example, if you go to a company website and they say that they value customers, right? That's important to them. Being honest is important to them. Having integrity. They are going to ask you questions about your relationship with customers, being honest, integrity, questions about stealing. They're going to ask you, tell me how you, manage a difficult customer. Do you lie to them? Do you oversell? Or, make promises that can't be kept? And that's really important, because customers, obviously, they're the life of the company. That's why they exist, to provide a service. So if you are upsetting the customer or overselling, and you can't promise or deliver on what you said, that customer is going to go somewhere else, right? And employers and companies, they rely on repeat customers. So if your behaviors with a customer cause them to go somewhere else, well, of course they don't want to hire you. So they're going to be digging deep, and you've got to figure out, what are your behaviors? How do you manage conflict? Do you get in people's faces? Do you become the aggressor, or do you run from conflict? That's that's an issue too. There's always going to be issues of conflict in every work environment. And I'm not talking about, people screaming and yelling. I'm just talking that there's miscommunication, there's misunderstandings. And if you're the kind of person that when these kinds of situations happen and you just kind of, sweep it under the rug or run or quit your job because of that situation, well, you're bringing that behavior to the next job. And then the same thing happens and you leave that job. So they're going to be digging deep. You've got to figure out, what are your behaviors when you don't agree with the supervisor? How do you handle that? What is your relationship with your colleagues, your team members? Can you carry your weight? These are all things that they're going to ask you. You've got to think about it ahead of time. So think about situations, when you were working on a project and we had, a road barrier. How did we overcome that obstacle? Was it asking for more money? Was it an issue of time management? Were there issues in the industry with the economy? How did you manage that situation? So think about that, reflect on it, put yourself in the day of the life of the job and think about, okay, today I talked to this person and we talked by phone or we talked by email or, I, scheduled a one-on-one with them, and what reports did you have to file? And, everything about the day, think about it, write it down. Part of the reflection is the accomplishments. What are those things that you're really proud of that you could pat yourself on the back? This is what sets you apart from the next candidate. The goal in the interview is to be better than the next person, right? And employers are looking for not only people that do their job, but do it better than anybody else. And this doesn't mean bringing in, $1 million contracts. This could be as simple as not getting hurt on the job. So if you are in an industry where you're transporting children or driving a truck, the fact that you are able to get your clients to a destination without an accident says a lot about your ability to do a good job. You follow the laws of driving, you care about the safety of your product or your customer. If you are in a warehouse where there's a high probability of getting hurt, that you are not getting hurt. That means that you are following the policies and procedures in the warehouse. You're following OSHA standards. You're making sure no one's hurt. And, the accomplishments could be letters of recommendation from customers. It could be employee of the month, employee of the year. It could be the ability to, talk to customers. Maybe a customer was threatening to leave and you were able to, keep this customer from leaving. It could even be, I was helping somebody once kind of think about their accomplishments. And this person kept saying, well, I don't have any accomplishments. I'm just, a machine operator. And as he kept talking more about his job, he was saying, well, when I'm on, PTO or I'm not working a shift, they're always calling me, asking me, how to get this machine working again. It was an older machine and the company didn't have any money to purchase a new machine. But he was able to keep the machine running. That was such a big accomplishment that he was overlooking. He was the go-to person to keep the machine running. He was saving the company millions of dollars. So that would be his accomplishment. So you got to kind of think about it, pull it apart. And if you need somebody to kind of walk you through that process, please reach out to the Workforce Center, and we're happy to kind of brainstorm with you. So anyways, so in this reflection, you're thinking about your strengths, you're thinking about what you need to improve upon, your behaviors, your values, accomplishments. Another thing that you need to think about are what are your transferable skills. And these are the skills that you bring with you to every job. And you need to be writing all of this down on paper so that you have, several pages to, refer back to as you're writing your resume, as you're getting ready for an interview. So think about your interpersonal skills. That's responding to concerns, motivating people, assisting others, listening, influencing others. How do you relate to people? Being a good listener is such a great skill to have. The ability to listen to somebody and their needs without thinking about a response or being distracted by anything happening around you or noise, or focused on the person's hairstyle or what's in the background, if you're on a Zoom call, but really listening. It's such a great skill. Think about times that you were working with a client and they were lacking the ability to kind of tell you what the issue is, and you were able to intuitively figure out what it really is that this customer was saying and what was really the need that they had. Influencing others, maybe you are the go-to person on the team and the employer is managing change. Change is consistent, especially in this day and age. There's always something changing and people are always resistant to it. Are you the person that everyone looks to kind of get everybody on board and get the buy-in? Motivating people, it's motivating customers, colleagues. Think about organizational skills, your ability to multitask, meet deadlines, follow through. Follow through is a great skill to have, that you could see a project through to the end, or talking to a customer, they have an order and you could kind of see that through to the end with follow-up. We're all in positions where we have multiple things going on. We have emails, we have projects, we have deadlines, people calling us, and maybe we're constantly being interrupted. Can you juggle many things without getting frustrated when somebody is pulling you away from a project or a phone's ringing? And I have worked with people that's really hard for them to do. They cannot deviate from a schedule. If they're very type A personality, they've got their checklist and they're just whatever's on there, they're checking it off one by one, and you cannot interrupt them. It's hard for them to go from one thing to the next. Is that an issue? Think about your leadership skills, your ability to evaluate a situation, persuading your team, initiating. If you have been a leader, in that reflection, think about how many people that you have led. Who were these team members? How did you manage situations when there was a low performer? How did you manage situations when the team wasn't getting along and dysfunctional? Did you take accountability? Did you make people accountable? Think about your leadership abilities. Think about communication. Every job, we are communicating in some form or fashion. We're advising people, we're explaining, we're translating, articulating. We have a situation where maybe we're talking about policies and procedures with the customer. And how do you articulate it? How do you meet that person where they are and help them understand it? Because maybe they have a language barrier. Maybe They have a disability, or maybe they have a learning disability. Maybe you are working with people that somebody learns better by, doing. Another person learns better by listening, or seeing a presentation, or having a piece of paper in front of them that they can look at and refer back to. So think about your communication skills. Think about times you had to advise somebody. How did you do that? Did you meet them where they were? And this is all part of those transferable skills. These are the skills that you take with you to every job. And this is, again, in the interview, this is what the employer wants to know. They cannot make you be a good multitasker. They cannot make you be, a good communicator, to write an email that is, without any grammar errors, that the difference between there, and there. They're all different spellings. Do you know the difference between the three? Can you use it in its proper form? Which, makes me think about when you're writing a cover letter. Some employers will ask you to write a cover letter just to see your ability to write. It's just an exercise in being able to write a complete sentence. And so, unfortunately, this is an issue in our day and age. So, think about, again, all of these transferable skills. Technical skills. Are you willing to learn new skills? You have to be realistic about this. Take a class. There's a lot of great classes out there for free that you could utilize. I think the library, and maybe Leslie could talk about this later, they have some great online learning classes. Goodwill has this, I put it down here on the PowerPoint, the edu.gcfglobal.org. There's all kinds of different tutorials and videos and surveys and quizzes that you could take on all kinds of subjects. Talk to the experts. What are they saying? What are the skills that the technical skills that they're utilizing, or new databases? Go on LinkedIn and look for people in the industry and ask them. That's what LinkedIn's about. It's all about networking and asking those kinds of questions. And so don't be scared to do that on LinkedIn. That's the function in LinkedIn. But we have some really great resources that are free in DuPage County. I know People's Resource Center is now having, they are offering free computer classes, I think on Excel and maybe Microsoft. So reach out to the library. I'm sure they could help you, or even the Goodwill here. We're happy to provide you with resources. But you have to really figure out, am I up to date in my technical skills? And some employers, they're willing to work with you on that. But really, it's about being able to start the first day on a job without any kind of barriers or lacking any skills to be successful in the job. So you really need to own this, and really be truthful. Do you need to take a class that maybe you might have to pay from pocket, so that you have that skill to be successful in whatever industry it is that you are pursuing? Another thing to remember is that WIOA covers money up to $10,000 to take certification classes. So if you are unemployed and receiving unemployment checks, I think TANF covers it, maybe even SNAP, you qualify for automatically up to $10,000 in free money for certification classes. So go to worknet.org and go to their website. There's all kinds of information about the steps that you need to take to qualify for the money. So there are free resources out there for you. Check your attitude. Why do you think this is important? I hear all the time from recruiters that, this is something that individuals kind of struggle with, especially if you are getting a lot of no's in the job search. You're getting the interviews, but you're getting the no's. You're being ghosted. You're getting frustrated. You don't want to bring any negativity into the interview or your interactions with employers. And yes, it's very frustrating. Maybe you were laid off from a job, or you had to leave a job, or you had a really bad experience. And they're going to ask you, why did you leave your previous job? You have got to present it as a positive experience. Every interaction with the employer has got to be positive. Nobody wants to work with a Debbie Downer, right? If you're just the kind of person that you're always negative, you're talking bad about people, that is the attitude and the behavior you're going to bring into this next job. And a lot of employers don't want to deal with it, right? It might disrupt the team. Maybe the team that for the position that you're applying for, the team might function really well and get along. And then they bring this person in that, kind of takes over the group, brings everybody down, pits everybody against each other, can't carry their weight. Nobody wants to work with that. And they certainly don't want to put this person in front of a customer, which is, you have to remember that this day and age, your job is a 24/7 job. There's just no way around it. You are always representing the company that you are working for. In this day and age of social media, anybody could get onto social media and make a comment that is not aligned with the values of the company you're working for. And somebody finds out that you're working for this employer, you're out of a job. Just think of all the situations, they call them the Karens out there, that are making these comments. And social media brings out the worst in people, unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, because now we really understand who this person really is. But you are representing the company, and they're going to probably do some checks on you on social media, but your attitude is really important. And it's important to being successful in a job. Again, nobody wants to work with a Debbie Downer, and certainly the employer does not want to put you in front of a customer. So really check your attitude at the door. Don't bring in these bad experiences with former employers or colleagues into the interview. If you, again, are having situations where you are being ghosted by recruiters or getting the no all the time, every interview, every interaction with an employer or recruiter should be a new experience, and don't take it out on them. So leave it all out. You have to really put on your best performance, right? Your Oscar-winning performance when you are working with a customer, when you are, in the job search. And it's not necessarily about being fake. It's your professional presentation, and everybody has one. Yeah, we might act differently at home, be a little bit more sarcastic at home, but you really have to be careful, how you're perceived in the interview. And any time that you have any interaction with a recruiter or a hiring manager. I saw this quote and thought it was interesting. It's a good thing to lose any sort of ego before hitting the job hunt. It's not about the money or the title. It's about getting practical work experience. Be willing to take a pay cut or accept a position of a lower rank than you previously held. So this is in regards to getting back into the workforce. So if you have been laid off for a certain amount of time, and you were, making excellent money, and you had, all of this experience, you might not be making that amount of money or even have that title ever again. It's just the reality of the workforce. I work with individuals that started a position right out of high school. They kind of rode that or climbed the company ladder. Maybe they didn't have a college degree because they were able to show their worth to the company and get all kinds of raises and promotions, and then they're laid off. So now they're starting the job search, maybe without a college education. And now they expect to or they're commanding the same amount of money. Well, the reality is that it's probably just not going to happen. And so you might have to think about, what do you have to do to get back there? You might have to start at the bottom again, or take a pay cut to get back to where you want to be. So you kind of have to think about this. Another thing is the ego. It goes back to being positive. We have to leave our egos out the door. We can't bring that into the job search or to the interview. And I'm not talking about, sharing your accomplishments and kind of bragging about yourself. There's a difference between, branding yourself and sharing your worth versus just being a narcissistic jerk, right? we all know those people. We see right through it. So does the recruiter and the hiring manager. The hiring manager certainly isn't going to want to hire somebody for the job that's going to push them around or anybody else around. So, we do have to humble ourselves to some degree and not make it look like you're doing, a favor for the company to hire you. So check your attitude at the door. Be prepared for the no. You have to realize that you are going to get a no sometimes in the job, but you have to, keep at it. You have to not take it personally. There's many reasons why you are not getting the yes. Maybe they're hiring internally. Maybe they don't know who's a good fit for the job. Maybe you didn't do good in the interview. Maybe you did excellent in the interview. Things are happening behind the scenes that we have no control over, and it's sometimes not about you. So don't take it personally. Just do the best you can. If you did terrible in the interview, do the best you can and move forward. So these are kind of everything that you need to, figure out if you are rejoining the workforce. You've got to, again, assess your skills, think about your transferable skills, reflect on your accomplishments, get ready for the interview, assess your technical skills. It's critical to know what you want. You need to know what it is that's going to work for you. You need to think about, how far do you want to drive? What industry you want to work in? But you also have to kind of stick to a schedule. It's a full-time job looking for a full-time job. So spend time every day reflecting on your previous positions. Spend time every day searching for a position, completing the application, searching the company website. And this might take a couple hours. You always got to go to a company website and check it out before you apply. Because sometimes, you could use some of the information on their website to put on your resume or to write in the cover letter. Their value words, their catchphrases. That's what you want to attract. You want to talk like them, and you need to convey that on your resume. And this takes time So you need to put aside, 4 to 5 hours a day just searching, researching, and applying for the job. And some applications are going to be an hour or two because they have assessments. You've got to prepare for assessments. So spend time every day searching for a position, completing the application. If you're in a serious job search, you should be filling out about 3 applications a day, 2 at the minimum, 5 at the max. You also need to spend time in exercise, meditation. You've got to renew yourself, refresh yourself. It is exhausting. Your mental health is so important. Drink water, get sleep, go outside, get some fresh air, be around people that lift you up. And so again, stick to a schedule. Let's talk about writing a resume. And you need to take a sip of water here. So you spent all of this time reflecting, thinking about your job search. You've got all of these wonderful skills, transferable skills, stories that you're going to share, all written down. Now you have to tackle the resume and the applicant tracking system. So for those of you starting a new job search, you need to be educated on the applicant tracking system. So it's considered the ATS. So it has a couple of purposes. The first is just to manage the candidate application, right? So when you're applying for a job online, that application is considered the tracking system. It tracks your application and your experience. It's also a means of communication. So the ATS has algorithms, and it's looking for a perfect candidate. So it's going to filter out candidates that meet the job requirements. So it's managing your application. If you pass, the assessment and you get high marks for being a good fit, then it's going to manage the application and make sure that it uses a calendar to send out emails to ask you, to correspond with you on scheduling appointments, and maybe emailing the hiring manager to invite them to meet with you, so on and so forth. But the bigger part, again, is it filters out the candidates that, meet the job requirements. What happens after you complete the online application? It removes the software from the resume. So when you start the application process, it's going to do you a favor, basically. It's going to say, okay, do you want to parse your resume into the application? It makes it easier for you to fill out the application and faster. So once you download your resume, it puts all of the different sections onto the application where it belongs. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. When it's parsing it, sometimes it'll scramble dates or put information in the wrong place. So you always have to go back and look and make sure all of the information is accurate. I know when I was looking for a job 7 years ago, when I did that, for some reason, it always took information from the last 2 positions I had on my resume and scrambled them all the time. So I always had to go back, make sure the information was correct. You don't have to parse it. You can just cut and paste the information from your resume into the sections of the application. At the end, normally there'll be a section for downloads, and then it'll ask you to download your resume again and a cover letter, whatever supporting documents. But for the applicant tracking system, once you hit submit, what happens is it's going to remove all the formatting, and what the employer sees on their end is actually a completed application. They're actually seeing the application. It's put all of your information into the sections that it belongs. And then it starts scanning it for, those keywords, the desired skills they're looking for. Maybe in the job description, it said you had to have 10 years experience working with customers, or you had to have this certification or that degree, or maybe they're looking for somebody with maybe good communication skills. As I said before, in your reflection process, you were thinking about your communication skills. So, I encourage people in the job search to, when they find a position they're interested in, cut and paste the job description into a Word doc, and then take out all the unnecessary words and break it down to action verbs and transferable skills, and focus on those words on your resume. So maybe the job application says, or the job description says, we need somebody that's a good communicator. Well, they're not going to break down usually what that communication means. Maybe it's translating information or articulating, or somebody with good writing skills. So you kind of have to intuitively kind of figure out what that communication means, and then put that on your resume. So it breaks down, it looks for all these skills and these words, and then it gives you a score. And so the highest score moves up, and usually, you are offered an opportunity for an interview. I encourage you, go to Google or YouTube, look for online applicant, or the ATS, the applicant tracking system, and see. Sometimes there's demonstrations on there about, what it looks like from the perspective of the employer or the recruiting manager. So you can see how they see it function. So I encourage you to do that. Your resume should have action verbs. Here's a list of some that are used most often. Again, Google resume action verbs. Begin every sentence or every bullet point on your resume with an action verb. Another thing that you could do if you are switching industries is use this online assessment, or this online search, and it's a comparative skills. What you'll do is you'll put in maybe some of your previous positions, and then so the title of a previous position, and then the title maybe of the position that you're looking for, and it compares the skills of those two industries. So I'm going to show you, because I put it up. So give me a second and I will show you. This is what it's from the Philadelphia Federal Reserve Bank. It has this great, it's called a Mobility Explorer. And if you see here, it has comparative skills. When you click on this, it's going to break down different metro areas in the United States. So we're in the Chicagoland area. You want to pull that up. And then you're going to look for an occupation, usually like a former position. So maybe you're an accountant and you're looking to get into maybe a different kind of industry or position. Maybe, you are interested in, being a baker. Let's see, what are the two skills? So in blue, we have the accountant auditor, and as a baker, it's orange. So 36% of skills for accountants will be used in your position, and 33. And then so on and so forth. So as an accountant, obviously you're going to use more skills as an accountant. And it come down here and it says, well, as a baker, you're going to need cleaning experience. So when you're figuring out and you're writing the resume to reflect everything you've done in your job that relates to maybe being a baker, you are going to rely heavily on these skills that matched. So you're going to think about everything that you did as an accountant that was communication skills, and everything you did as an accountant that regarded details or organizational skills, scheduling, teamwork and collaboration. This is where you would focus on the skills that are alike for the two positions and put that on your resume. So I hope that makes sense. But again, it is the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, and it's you would go to community development, or you could even their search engine just put in Occupational Mobility Explorer. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. So those are the comparative skills. On your resume, you are comparing the skills between two occupations or two different kind of titles. And this is kind of what a resume should look like. You don't need, you don't need your address. You just need a city, state, obviously a phone number and an email. You want to put in your career experience. You always, or employment experience, whatever you want to title it is fine. The name of the employer, the city, the state, and then on that same line to the far right, you want when you started and when it ended. And you don't need this particular day, but you need a month and a year. Employers want to see the month. If you leave the month out, it could look like you've only been in a job or there's a gap of a year, and they're concerned about gaps. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. Put the title of the position next, and then 5 or 6 bullet points of that position. And you begin each bullet point with an action verb. You need to make your resume as clean and clear as possible to read, because recruiters or hiring managers aren't really going to sit down and read everything. So you want them to, you want it to look pleasing to the eye. If you can quantify something, put that on there, how many people that you managed. If you were maybe, if you were a waitress, you know, you want to say, I was a